real estate, investing, taking care of yourself. I don't understand all of it, so I like to bring in an expert from time to time to tell us what is going on. And our expert today is John Grace, who actually he's the only expert we bring in on these subjects, all the way from Westlake Village. Welcome, John Grace.
Thank you so much, Mike. Good to be with you again. Happy holidays.
Now, before we start, I just want to say today's Wednesday, December 18th, I think, 2024. Because I'm going to ask John some questions about the market today, and I don't want you guys to be watching in a month and think, it's happening right now. Because what's happening today is kind of crazy. Tell us about it, John. What's going on in the market?
Well, you know what, Mike? This is a very unusual time, and what we've been saying to investors is this is an appropriate time to prepare for what we think could turn out to be the crash of our lifetimes,
wow,
both in stocks and in real estate. Now, your timing for having me on today is amazing, because if we look at what's going on with the S&P, the Dow, and the NASDAQ, both the S&P and the Dow today are off over 2%. The NASDAQ, as of right now, is off over 3% just today. We've been saying if you want to look for a number to kind of focus on, who knows what will happen, but I've been saying for some time, look for the S&P 500 for a couple of things. The number I've been saying look for is 6,000. Do we blow through it to the upside, then it's off to the races. But if we drop below 5,800, right now we're at 5,887, 5,700, we may find that it's kind of like Wile E. Coyote, how low can we go? And as you know, we pay for independent research.
Yeah.
The research team is being, in some minds, ridiculous, suggesting that stocks could drop 70% from here, and also suggesting that real estate, on average, across the country, for a host of reasons, could very well drop 50 to 60%. Okay, this may turn out to be a replay of the Great Depression, right? And it was kind of interesting to look at the president of the time, who just took office in January of 1929. The market came unglued starting October 24th, just after he got the drapes hung in the White House, okay? Wow. And he got hung with the results of the Great Depression, so he could not be reelected. But Mike, he said something very, very interesting.
That was Herbert Hoover, by the way, am I right?
I'm sorry?
That was Hoover, right?
That was Hoover,
Yeah.
That's right. That's right.
One term.
What President Hoover said is this is not unusual to expect because of the orgy of speculation at this time. Now, does that sound familiar?
Yeah.
Does that sound like what we're going through right here, right now, live and in color? Everybody's getting high on everything they threw a dart at 5 years ago, 14 years ago, and everything's and everybody just says this is just going to continue. Well, here's the truth. When you're on the carousel, my friends, all right, and the music stops, you get off the little horsey. So what we're trying to do is be the canary in the coal mine, ask people some hard questions like what kind of loss can you live with? What kind of positions have you taken where you can limit your losses, or are you going to try to live with those losses and find out you were on the roller coaster ride that went all the way to a very hot place and it crashed and burned?
Yeah, last time you were on, we talked about this very thing, almost like you saw it coming, that things like this happen, and it's how you get ready for it.
That's the thing. It's not about the prediction, because everybody wants to say, well, when's it going to happen? How bad is it going to get? I'm like, do you know when the next earthquake is going to happen, the next tornado, the next windstorm? You don't know, and I don't either. That's not the question. The better question to ask yourself and answer is, are you prepared? How we like working with engineers, as you know, Mike, and engineers of all stripes, that's how they think. Let's start with the worst case scenario. Do not give me the pie in the sky crapola. Do not pour the Kool-Aid, and don't give me those rose-colored glasses you won't take off. Yeah. Let's look at the worst case scenario and see if I can live with that. If I can live with that, I'm good. But if I'm not, what can we do so that I don't have to go down like the Titanic?
Nice. I never know what to do, John. Do we call you? That's what I would do.
Well, what we're saying, and we're working with clients right now who are sitting on a lot of cash. And by the way, let's go there for a minute. Warren Buffett, Oracle of Omaha, one house, by the way. He sold the house in Laguna Beach, but he only had two. He didn't stack up on real estate. We'll come back to that in a minute. But let's just notice that over this year, His cash balance earlier in the year, I think it was like 120 and then 180 million. Billion. Today, last I looked, just a month ago, the report that I can see, he's sitting on $325 billion. Some people think it's a shot across the bow of the stock market. Here's what we do know. This gentleman does his homework.
Yeah.
He looks at things and he assembles cash so that he can look forward to being able to secure some kind of position from a distressed buyer. And that's my point. He didn't leave his money in a place where the Titanic went down.
Mm-hmm.
He collected. He sold some very profitable stocks, for example. Apple, I believe, is one of them, but he's accruing cash. That suggests to me at 94 that he's getting ready to be able to be in a position where there are going to be distressed buyers showing up, and he's going to be able to buy low so that he can at some point in the future sell high.
Yeah.
On that note, when we look at real estate, listen, there's three pieces of the puzzle people do not look at. We're told that it's all about shortages. Well, suppose we're moving right before your very eyes from a shortage to a surplus. How is that possible? Well, most of us don't recognize that there are 16 million vacant homes in America.
Yeah.
The two top states for the highest vacancies are Florida. I thought everybody was moving to Florida. Well, apparently there's 1.7 million vacant homes in Florida. And guess what? California's number 2. 1.2 million vacant homes right here in California. Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's see. There are 16 million vacant homes across the country, and we crossed kind of like the twilight zone, if you will, right? 76.4 is the average age of death in America. We like to believe we're living longer. The average of us are not. Your family might be living longer. Mine and my in-laws all got into their 90s, but don't look at your family first, please. They're exceptional. They're outliers. There's a lot fewer of them than there are of the Homer and Marge Simpsons across the country making less than $80,000 a year. And for a host of reasons, after COVID, the life expectancy for every country I have seen started declining. Only one country kept declining, that is us, the U.S., because of American exceptionalism, right? Down to 76.4. Canada, U.S., Japan, UK, Canada, Japan, all north of 80. We're below 77, and every year that number keeps going down. Why is that important? The primary driver to the economy overall have been 76 million people, baby boomers born 1946 to 1964. I don't care if it was, diapers, Whammo, Monopoly, Mustangs, houses. All these folks, you have to buy a whole lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Well, at some point, the consumer gets exhausted. We might be there or right there right now. But let's understand, the average age of death keeps declining, and then the next shoe that drops that people don't see is 78 is the age most Americans do what? You bought the first house at 31, the biggest house at 41, you sell the houses at 78. Here comes 76 million people, right behind Bill Clinton and Donald John Trump, who turned 77 last year, 78 this year, and here comes a whole bunch of people behind them. And then this is interesting. For homeowners, we're all delighted, right? In the Midwest, home prices have tripled over the last 20, 25 years. On the coast, home prices have quadrupled. Let's pause here for a moment. Let's ask the question, what has income done during the same time period? 1.6 time increase, 1.6 time. Houses have tripled, if not quadrupled. Is this sustainable, in your opinion, where the income has not kept up with the pace of the appreciation for all of these magnificent assets? So you got to figure out, when is it time to take your chips off the table like you're in Vegas and collect your cash, and then maybe do like Warren Buffett and get ready to be able to take advantage of a buying opportunity, as opposed to, gee whiz, Mike, is it true that after the Great Depression, stocks dropped 85%, taking 25 years to get back to even, and New York real estate dropped 70%? That's right, 7-0. Can you imagine? $1 million, whatever it was, dropped to 300,000 in real estate in New York. Stocks dropped to 200,000. I mean, that was 2 million. Now you're worth 500,000. Let's look at it this way. Both industries, securities and real estate, it always comes back, Mike. It always comes back. Yeah, let's look at the details. It took 25 years for stocks to come back, assuming you didn't sell a share. You didn't need any money for 25 years. Who can live without any money? Okay? That's what it took to come back. Real estate in New York took 4 decades. Did you say 40 years? Yes, I did. So that means the stocks didn't come back or the real estate while you were still here, because the average life expectancy, if we were talking about the early 1900s, that's starting out with the roaring 20s and became the Great Depression in the same decade, average life expectancy then was 57.
Yeah.
57.
Yeah.
Looks like deja vu all over again to me.
Yeah, and what you're saying what Warren Buffett did, he's accumulating cash because there's going to
Yes,
be
sir.
fire sales.
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
when we had the last real estate crash here in California, in my neighborhood, houses went down 60%.
Average is about 34 across the country.
Yeah.
Some were, that's an average, right? So some were a lot less, some were a lot more. But here's the thing that I just came across talking with some investors on Monday. And this may be like a vision on the future. Let's look at Michael Jordan. He bought an $11 million house. I think he lived in it for over 10 years. He added $39 million in upgrades, right, to make this a palace. He listed the house 12 years ago for $28 million, thinking this is a bargain price.
Yeah.
He didn't budge on that price. He figured, I got 50 in here, at least I can get almost half, right?
Yeah.
That sounds reasonable, but that's the logic sellers often have. I'm not going to give it away. Well, he changed realtors Mike, every year. I mean,
Yeah.
the house has been listed for 12 years. Every year he changed the realtor. They had a different focus, a different way of looking at it, a different way. We're going to move this, okay? Nobody moved it. So the house has been on the market longer than most realtors have been in the business as a realtor. That's interesting.
Yeah.
So I believe the home just sold for $9.5 million. Now for him, that's probably a nice tax deduction.
Yeah.
For the rest of us, I don't think we'd be looking
No.
at it like that.
We could not sustain that.
$3.5 billion per Forbes, Michael Jordan. You know, a loss of $30-40 million for a millionaire is like maybe $11,000. Not so much. For the rest of us, we would be a little upset, and it would be hard to have a nice day.
Had I done like Warren Buffett's doing now, had I done that before that last real estate crash, I'd be a multimillionaire rather than a multi-thousandaire right now.
Right.
But I get what you're saying. Cash could be king in a couple months.
Yes, in more than one way. Cash. What we do, I mean, the houses are interesting because you're either all in or all out.
Yeah.
You can't hedge.
Right.
With your securities, or particularly your retirement accounts, let's first understand, if it's a traditional retirement account, was a 401k, now it's an IRA, the IRS says, oh, you're 72, 73, you must start taking withdrawals. And those withdrawals only increase every year a little bit, no matter what your account does. So let's just look at it like this. When you had 50% losses, 2002, 08, 09, in the same decade,
Yeah.
and you were making contributions, that was really a blessing. That was really a blessing, because you're buying more shares and you're putting into your account while prices are low, all right? But now that you have to start taking withdrawals, how much can you withstand a 50%, whatever it might be, significant loss to your portfolio as you're increasing your withdrawals?
Yeah.
So what we're saying is this. We don't want to insult people by saying, Mike, you have to live with the losses. Frankly, that's what my peers tend to do. What we're saying is something quite different. Let's see what we can do to limit your losses. Let's go through a series of questions so that you can find out for the first time. We're not going to ask you a conservative, moderate, or aggressive. I don't understand the question either. I don't expect you to understand the answer. We're not speaking the same language. But if we ask you these questions and you come up with, well, you know what, I think based on these questions, yeah, I think 12% I think I could live with that. Now, and you have the right to change your mind, but let's say that's what you set it at. And then we wake up and we go, oh, that was a bad year. Your account's off 10%. And I go, Mike, we have some good news. Your account's off 10%. And Mike looks at me and says, what the heck are you talking about? You're telling me I lost money.
Yeah.
That's right, Mike. But I'm looking in the eye and I'm smiling at you because remember, what do they say? If you find yourself in a ditch, stop digging.
Yeah.
What you said is you wanted to stop digging at 10. So at $1 million, that's 100. I'm sorry, you said you would be willing to stop at 12. That'd be 120. But your account stopped at 10, all right? That's lower than what you said your threshold was. Now, yes, that's 100,000, but remember where the money was, where it was passively invested? Those accounts in 2022 were off 20 to 30%. That's what, $200,000 to $300,000 below even, okay? So I'm okay with 10 for you. Now again, you can change your mind, we can reconfigure things, but that's the point. we want to do what we can to see how we might put a portfolio together that potentially could perform within your limits of loss. That way, your expectations are being met or not exceeded, as opposed to, oh, I can live with 12, but the account went down 30. We don't want that to happen, particularly when you're taking withdrawals that you're going to need from 72 to 100.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. This is very insightful. It's got me thinking a lot, John. What do our viewers do? Do they call you? Do they go to your website? We have your number on the screen, your web address on the screen. What should our viewers do?
Right, they can call us, they can visit our site. We're happy to set up a 15-minute time frame to see what we might be able to do, but we're certainly motivated and committed to do all things possible so folks can survive and thrive through 2025. All right, and that's our point. Someone needs to be on point and looking at your account daily, asking and answering the question, risk on, risk off. With real estate, people often have extra houses, and what we're saying is, look, if you wake up a minute, 2 minutes, 2 years from now, and it's worth 50% less, are you okay with that? If you're okay with that, go with God. If that doesn't sound like fun, take those chips off the table, put the money in your pocket, watch the movie with the popcorn in your lap. It's a lot more interesting when you don't have any skin in the game. That's real estate. With everything else, what can we do to limit the losses? And part of that is using things that are outside of traditional asset classes, okay? Yale endowment, $40.7 billion. I count 7, 8 different asset classes, and none of them have an exposure of over 20%. So it sounds like they're making relatively small bets compared to the majority of us, but they have more legs under their portfolio stool, which certainly makes for a stronger portfolio. And Yale says, if you dig deep into their site, that this is how we used to do it back in the 80s, and by the way, we've changed the way we do it. It's far more diversified than it used to be, our portfolio. And in 08, Yale says we didn't lose any money. I don't know that anybody else could do that, but for me, it's encouraging to see this is what the best and the brightest are doing. Maybe you and I can do some of this too, or at least something like this.
Wow, John, you only come on the show every month or two. We didn't have to have you every day or two the way things are going right now.
It's going to get interesting, my friend. And by the way, Great Depression 1 was pretty much limited to the U.S. And Michio Kaku, astrophysicist, suggests that depressions happen in civilizations every 80 years. It's not a bad thing. It's like winter. It's cold. It's uncomfortable. That's how the plants and trees and animals that live come out stronger, right? And that's what we're saying to folks. Let's not try to avoid this pain. Let's make sure that personally we might limit it. But you know, when things get cheaper, that's not all bad. Particularly, do you remember the day when people could live off their Social Security?
Yeah.
That was a long time ago, wasn't it?
I don't remember that.
I don't care where you live anymore.
Yeah.
So yeah, now's the time to wake up, smell the coffee. Don't drink the Kool-Aid. Don't get high on what the folks are telling you to do. Buy more houses, buy more stocks. Figure out how to limit your losses, and that way you can actually enjoy yourself, enjoy life, and maybe live to 80, 90, 100, and not try to go back and try to be a Walmart greeter, because you're going to be not accepted because you have too strong a resume.
Yeah. There's a famous quote from the show Game of Thrones, and they say, "Winter is coming." And it is coming.
Yes.
So, John, thank you for your time, John. I'm so excited about this. I'm sending this video off to my daughter and some of my friends as soon as it's over, because they need to take a look at this. So
I appreciate it. Happy to sit down with folks and see what we might be able to do. But like I say, take off the rose-colored glasses, look at it from a worst-case scenario, and prepare and look to see what you can do to prepare to limit your losses. That way it just becomes a little more enjoyable experience that you can talk about, as opposed to, well, the family went